The restaurant was quiet in the early evening, the kind of place where soft piano music drifted through the air and every glass on the table caught the warm glow of candlelight. People spoke in low voices, careful not to disturb the calm elegance that filled the room. At a corner table near the window sat Daniel Mercer. Daniel was known across the city as the man who built an empire before the age of 40. His name appeared in business magazines, his companies dominated markets, and his wealth was something people whispered about with both admiration and distance. But tonight he sat alone, staring at the empty chair across from him. His assistant had arranged the blind date after months of insisting that he needed something more than boardrooms and contracts. "You can't run a company 24 hours a day," she had told him. "At least meet someone." Daniel had agreed only to end the conversation. Now he checked his watch. 7:15. The date had been scheduled for 7. The chair remained empty. He felt nothing about it. No disappointment. No surprise. Just the same quiet numbness that followed him everywhere. His life was efficient, controlled, predictable. He woke early, exercised, ran meetings, signed deals, and returned each night to a penthouse apartment, so quiet it sometimes felt like a museum. Relationships had never survived his schedule or his distance. Eventually, people stopped trying. He was about to stand up when a sudden movement interrupted his thoughts. A young woman rushed into the restaurant, breathing quickly as if she had been running. Her coat looked thin for the cold evening, and her hair was slightly messy, as though the wind had tangled it during her walk. She paused near the table, scanning the room with uncertain eyes. Daniel barely noticed her at first, but then she walked straight toward his table. Excuse me," she said softly, pulling out the empty chair and sitting down before he could respond. For a moment they both stared at each other. Daniel frowned slightly. "I think you might have the wrong table." The girl blinked in confusion, then looked around the restaurant. Her face flushed with embarrassment. "Oh no, I'm so sorry," she said quickly, standing halfway up again. "I thought this was someone else's table." Daniel studied her. Her clothes were simple, worn at the edges. There was a nervous energy about her, like someone who wasn't used to being in a place like this. Before she could leave, the waiter approached. "Will you both be ordering tonight?" he asked politely. The girl froze. Daniel noticed the panic in her eyes. For a second, it looked like she might run out of the restaurant. Something unexpected stirred inside him. "Actually," Daniel said calmly, "she is with me." The girl turned to him in surprise. "You don't have to," she whispered. "It's fine," he replied. The waiter handed her a menu and left. For a moment, silence settled between them. The girl looked down at the menu but didn't open it. "I really didn't mean to sit here," she said quietly. "I was meeting someone, but I guess I got the table wrong." Daniel leaned back in his chair. "That makes 2 of us," he said. She looked up. "My date never showed up either." The girl let out a small nervous laugh. "Well, at least neither of us got rejected alone." Something about her honesty caught Daniel off guard. Most people around him were careful with their words, always trying to impress him. But this stranger spoke simply, without calculation. "What's your name?" he asked. "Lena." "Daniel." She nodded politely but showed no sign of recognizing his name. That alone intrigued him. The waiter returned and Lena hesitated when he asked for her order. Daniel noticed the way she quickly chose the cheapest item on the menu. As the waiter walked away, Daniel asked gently, "Why were you meeting someone here?" She hesitated before answering. "Honestly," she said. "Yes. I signed up for a dating app a few weeks ago. My friend convinced me. She said maybe I'd meet someone kind." Lena gave a small shrug, but I guess he changed his mind. Daniel studied her expression. There was disappointment there, but also resilience. "What about you?" she asked. "Why were you on a blind date?" "My assistant forced me," Daniel said. "Wow, that sounds very official." "It usually is." Lena smiled slightly. For the first time that evening, Daniel felt something unfamiliar warming his chest. The conversation continued slowly at first. Lena talked about working 2 jobs, one at a bookstore and another delivering food in the evenings. She told stories about strange customers, long bus rides, and the way she sometimes read novels during quiet moments at work. Daniel listened more than he spoke. Her world was completely different from his. Yet something about it felt real in a way his own life no longer did. Halfway through dinner, Lena paused and looked at him curiously. "You're very quiet," she said. "I'm listening. Most people just talk about themselves." Daniel thought about the endless meetings where people did exactly that. "I prefer hearing the truth," he said. She tilted her head. "And what truth have you heard tonight?" Daniel looked at her for a moment before answering. "That life can still be simple." Lena smiled. When the check arrived, she reached for her bag immediately. Daniel shook his head. "I invited you to stay," he said. "Dinner's on me?" She hesitated, but eventually nodded. Outside the restaurant, the night air was cold and crisp. City lights reflected across the wet pavement. Lena pulled her coat tighter. "Well," she said softly, "thank you for the dinner, even if it started by accident." Daniel looked at her carefully. "Do you believe in accidents?" he asked. She thought for a moment. "Sometimes accidents are just life giving us something unexpected." A black car pulled up beside them. Lena's eyes widened slightly. "Wait, are you—" The driver stepped out and opened the door. Only then did realization dawn on her face. "You're Daniel Mercer," she whispered. He nodded. Embarrassment flashed across her expression. "I'm sorry," she said quickly. "I didn't know. I wouldn't have just sat down like that if I—" Daniel interrupted gently. "I'm glad you didn't know." She looked confused. "For the first time in years," he said quietly, "someone talked to me like I was just a person." The wind moved softly through the street. Lena looked at him with thoughtful eyes. "Well," she said, "you are just a person." Something inside Daniel shifted at that moment. Not dramatically, not loudly, just a quiet realization that the walls he had built around his life were not as strong as he believed. "Would you like to have dinner again sometime?" he asked. She smiled warmly. "But next time," she said, "let's choose a place where the menus don't make me nervous." Daniel laughed, a genuine laugh that surprised even him. "Deal." As Lena walked toward the bus stop instead of the waiting car, Daniel watched her disappear into the glow of the city lights. For years he had searched for success, power, and control. But it took one simple mistake, one wrong table, and one honest conversation to remind him of something he had forgotten. Sometimes the moment that changes your life forever begins with an empty chair.